Are you feeling drained? Here are 5 physical symptoms of spiritual awakening you need to know. When it comes to looking at spiritual awakening, this concept of understanding the symptoms has really been a mystery for many people, especially if you are new to spiritual awakening. Now, here's the thing though, when it comes to looking at the physical symptoms, we have to remember the mind-body connection. We have to remember that it's not just about only physical symptoms. We have physical symptoms, mental symptoms, emotional symptoms, and spiritual symptoms that help us embody our intuitive gifts. So when it comes to looking at the physical symptoms of awakening, there are so many things to talk about. So let's dive in to 5 common ones that you might be experiencing with your own spiritual awakening. Let's dive in. Hey guys, it is Ashley from theawakenstate.net. And here's the thing. So if you are feeling drained recently, now, okay, let's just talk about this. So there's one thing that I've been seeing coming up a lot within threads. Have you heard of threads? Like, threads has been really interesting because I feel like it's a way to look at the collective thought sphere of people. And so threads has been really showing me a lot of about spiritual people. And one thing that's been coming up a lot has been people feeling exhausted and drained since the eclipse. Now, here's the thing about this. A lot of people are experiencing this, but they might not realize that they're this is very common when you have a spiritual awakening, is you might be feeling those shifts that are occurring in the collective. And I think this is a really interesting way to kind of bridge in this topic of 5 physical symptoms you might be experiencing with a spiritual awakening, because at the crux of all of them, one of the hugest things is seeing that when you have those physical symptoms start to appear in relationship to solar flares, eclipse season, basically astrological shifts that are really, really massive, we are really in connection to the collective energy. And when I see this stuff on threads, I think it's so fascinating because we can really kind of pinpoint, okay, there's definitely an energetic shift going on because we're all vibrationally feeling that. And there was even one question that I thought was hilarious, and it was, does anybody else, whenever there's solar flares or eclipse season, they suddenly feel that heavily on their physical body? And a lot of people chimed in that, yeah, that's exactly what I'm feeling. And it's this is a very common thing when we become more energetically sensitive. So this is the first symptom that I see a ton when it comes to looking at physical symptoms of awakening. And this is that we are very much in sync with the collective shifts. We are in sync with the astrological shifts. We are in sync with whatever is happening in the collective at a given moment in time. And that's because everything is connected. And as we become more energetically sensitive, we definitely feel that as sensations in our body. Now, over time, I've learned that it doesn't have to be such a physical shift as more of a mental or an emotional shift that occurs, such as with eclipse season, for example. So if you've been around the block, I love to talk about eclipse season, but one of the hugest things I love to emphasize is that when it comes to looking at eclipse season, the hugest thing we have to remember is the lunar eclipse is all about internal shifts, and the solar eclipse is all about physical shifts, so external shifts, so external change versus internal change. And this is a great example here of when we have a spiritual awakening occur, we might not always start to see this so black and white as we become more sensitive to these energetic shifts. And so I like to call them, they are energetic shifts, but we could call them paradigm shifts. We could call them collective shifts, whatever your terminology is. But this is one of the number one signs that you are experiencing physical symptoms that are accompanying a spiritual awakening. And also at the same time, it might be a little bit alarming to you to realize that when there's solar flares or an eclipse season, or you're just in general feeling that collective upheaval energy, it means that you're now literally energetically sensitive to the collective energy. And so some people don't feel this as intensely. And the reason for this is they might be an empath. They might just be energetically tuned in to the collective sphere. Or they might just be kind of waking up those senses that were a little bit dormant. So this becomes even more apparent as you're going through a spiritual awakening. Okay, let's move on. So the next one that I see a lot is exhaustion. So here's the thing. When we first have a spiritual awakening, I don't know about you, but the first thing I did was I thought I was crazy. And the next thing I did is I tried to get everything checked out because I literally thought I was losing my mind because I'd have things happen to me and then I would have to literally go to the doctor and make sure there was nothing wrong. And I went through this cycle a lot until I just realized, oh, I'm just having symptoms of awakening. So what I realized within this moment is like I would go to the eye doctor. Okay, I'm seeing energy. I'm feeling energy. Maybe I need to check my eyesight. So I'd go to the doctor and then the doctor would be like, you're completely normal besides being nearsighted. And then I'd do the same thing again with the physical doctor. And then I'd do the same thing again with going to the ER because I thought I was having a panic attack because of feeling energy. Need I go on? Basically, what I want you to see here is sometimes those physical symptoms, and again, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not, always listen to your body without a question. Full disclaimer here. But a lot of the times when we have those sensations, when we have physical symptoms, and at the same time, they're saying, hey, you're perfectly healthy. Hey, there's nothing wrong with you. 9 times out of 10, it might be something in relationship to going through the physical sensations and physical shifts of a spiritual awakening. And I say that with care and honesty because it's really easy to get bogged down by that. So one of the number one things that I see a lot in terms of physical symptoms is a sense of general exhaustion because you're going through so much mentally and emotionally as you experience a spiritual awakening. Your body is trying to integrate all that information and learn to basically process it and release it. And for some of us, this might mean that it's kind of hard to grasp. It's hard to grasp in essence of like, it feels very tiring and almost like jarring on the nervous system. And because it feels jarring on the nervous system, we as a person have a hard time coping with that. And so what happens instead is we become energetically drained. So if you ever felt really, really drained out of nowhere, maybe due to an eclipse season, or maybe just in general during your spiritual awakening in the early stages, a lot of that was due to the body learning how to integrate and release those energies. So that's one of the main things that happens a lot when we go through signs and symptoms of spiritual awakening is we're having that feeling of general exhaustion and fatigue and just kind of almost like a malaise, but not even like we're sick, but more just like, oh, I am so drained. It's because the body is literally contracting. And so in that contraction, we're releasing, we're letting go, we're resting, we're really softening our nervous system and kind of regulating back and allowing ourselves to let go of whatever needs to be let go and so forth. So another one that's very common is feeling pressure in the third eye chakra or headaches. And this is one that I see a ton when it comes to looking at physical symptoms. So a lot of the times when we have a spiritual awakening, we're opening up all of our chakras. And I always like to say that you can connect spiritual awakening to 2 main things, which is the chakra system, which helps you understand the energy body as a whole as a concept, how each energy center is working. And then on the other side, we have the mind-body connection. And so when we have this revolutionary experience of Kundalini ascension, or basically a rising of this energy, what's happening is we're going through all these systematic changes, and it literally is affecting us psychosomatically. And because of this, we experience things almost in relationship to that. So for example, when we have all this energy coming up and coming up and coming up and coming up into our third eye. Now, for many of us, we might have suppressed our intuition. We might have intuitive blocks. We might be kind of in a way where we're not used to working with our intuition. Or as a concept, we're not used to hearing internal guidance. And so as we start to wake up all this dormant energy, we have headaches and pressure in the third eye because literally we're experiencing a third eye awakening. We're experiencing the opening of that chakra center. And so to really bring this back even more to practicality, what we have here is you have a bunch of conditioning in the third eye chakra. And because of that, you might experiencing headaches or pressure or these sensations in the third eye because you're starting to clean up that energy. Now, a lot of times when we have those symptoms, it's a really important time to start to work with that third eye chakra. And I always like to say the number one way to work with the ascension symptoms is to work with the chakra system, because you're easily able to pinpoint, okay, I'm having stomach troubles. It's my solar plexus. Okay, I need to go and work on my solar plexus and work on my power center and my ego and my identity. It's like, oh, I'm feeling super ungrounded. Okay, I need to work on my root chakra because I know if I'm feeling really ungrounded, then that's what I need to work on. So it allows you to see very honestly and kind of almost in a plug and play situation of, okay, this is where I need to do work because this is where the energy is either imbalanced or bringing my attention towards it. And that's a really kind of a segue here of what we're talking about, but it's important to see this because it can help you a ton with really figuring out, okay, so I'm having a bunch of pressure in my third eye chakra. I'm having a lot of headaches come up. What am I refusing to see? What am I refusing to hear? What am I not getting? Because a lot of the times, I always like to say this, and this is kind of weird, but a lot of times I'll have headaches and the next day I'll have like a massive breakthrough because there was something I wasn't seeing and I just needed to kind of take a minute to process that and let it go and kind of just move through the motions. And then I was able to have a massive breakthrough, or a knowledge bomb the next few days because I worked through that in my third eye chakra. Another thing, when this happens, the number one thing you should be working on is your spiritual practice in your relationship to your intuition and your higher self, because this will also help you connect into that energy where we're moving beyond the limited mind into the higher mind, which is really what helps us connect more intuitively to opening up the third eye chakra. So when it comes to looking at other symptoms in the chakra system and how it connects, we haven't really discussed one of the more common ones, which is body aches. Now, when we have certain body aches happen due to symptoms of Kundalini awakening or spiritual awakening, it's often just due to the nervous system going through so many rapid changes with the influx of energy. And so again, one thing I like to say is think back to what part of the body is the ache coming from? And then connecting that back to a particular chakra is so helpful. For example, with the stomach, if you're having stomach aches, then connect it back to the solar plexus in your power center, your willpower, and so forth. So you can see here how body aches in general can often be both. It can be both a mechanism of you need to release something, but it can also be a mechanism of, okay, the nervous system is literally going through so much rapid change that you're having body aches that are literally kind of like almost like after a workout, right? You're working out those muscles. Well, it's in the same regard of when we're working through all of this mental and emotional and physical stuff that's happening on the body due to spiritual awakening, there is a psychosomatic response to that. And when we start to look at it as a whole, we can start to pinpoint, okay, this is what's coming up for me. What is it here to teach me? And that helps you kind of gauge what is happening behind the scenes. Okay, another one that we haven't talked about is hypersensitivity. Now, this is one of my more passionate ones to talk about because I think as you become more energetically sensitive, hypersensitivity is due to feeling energy. It's due to feeling more of the energy around you. So a lot of the times when we have hypersensitivity, we might find ourselves having a hard time being in environments. We might have like this energetic overload come over us in terms of being out in public or being in physical places. And a lot of times this is revealing to you one of your gifts. This is revealing to you that you're probably an empath, or you are literally an intuitive reader. So you are literally intuitively reading other people. So I think that's called clairsentience. I might be wrong, but it's one of the clairs. And so this particular sensation that you're feeling is you're starting to tap into different faculties of your mind, right? So we have Kundalini rising energy, opening up all the chakras, opening up all the energy. And at the same time, this might be stuff that you've never had open before. So it's like learning to walk again. It's like learning to access different parts of your mind that weren't really conscious. They were more unconscious. Like they were there, but they were more like asleep, or they were more just kind of like laying there under the surface. And so Kundalini awakening rises up all this energy, and then you have to learn how to process and deal with it, essentially. So because of this, the hypersensitivity is often due to higher chakras. So all those higher chakras are overactive. And what happens is you start feeling everybody's everything. So we either have our intuitive gifts starting to open up wide for us, and we've never really discovered them before, or we've never really been taught how to use them before. And at the other spectrum, we are literally energetically sensitive, and we start to tune into that environment around us. So for example, I think it's really important to emphasize this. Like a lot of people who don't have a spiritual awakening happen to them, they're not energetically sensitive. So they don't notice when the collective's in upheaval, or they don't notice when there's an eclipse happening. It's there behind the surface. Like they might have some things happen to them in their life, but they're not energetically sensitive to it. So I think the word here we're really looking at here is energetic sensitivity is hypersensitivity. And that's what's happening behind the scenes is the more you become conscious of energy and energy awareness, you start to learn how to manage that energy. And then at the same time, one of the ways to help you through this transition is to see it as a gift rather than a curse. Just notice that your gifts are starting to show themselves. To see that you're probably an empath, you're probably an intuitive, and so forth. And I think really looking more behind the scenes of why the hypersensitivity is coming up for you can shed a ton of light into just knowing who you are as a person, but also what is intuitively showing itself to you, because that will help you either figure out your natural intuitive gifts, or it can help you understand yourself and what you're naturally sensitive to. And most importantly, I think when we look at hypersensitivity as a whole, we can see that it is about being energetically sensitive, and to see it more so as a gift rather than a curse. Okay, so those are the 5 physical symptoms that I would like you to know in relationship to spiritual awakening. Is there any particular symptom that directly stood out for you? Are you experiencing any of the above? I would love to know. I have definitely experienced all of them throughout my spiritual journey with spiritual awakening, and having Kundalini awakening happen to me in 2011. And I think it's one of those things that it comes back to really honing in on knowing our intuition. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to give you guys an awesome free challenge around understanding your intuition. This has been continuously coming up for me, and I'm ready to deep dive into this concept. So I'm going to be releasing a free challenge at theawakenedstate.net/intuition, where you guys can personally sign up, and we're going to go into a live challenge event. And I'm going to take you through some really cool exercises around how you can start to disable your intuitive blocks and start to own your intuitive gifts. So if you are interested in that, I will leave the sign up link down below for you. And most importantly, I'd love to know your thoughts on this topic, because I know it's a very passionate one inside of the spiritual awakening community. But we are not talking enough about how to manage those symptoms. How can we start to work with them as a gift rather than a curse? That's the conversation I'm here to bring to the table. So if you enjoyed our videos, please hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.